What's the order?
It's going to go one off.
One off? Okay.
I'm ready when she's ready. I thought my pens were working. I'm sorry. Right. Good. No one seemed to care about us the first day he left, nor the days after. A year passed, and the most I got was an occasional postcard from a faint memory I could barely remember anymore. 2 years after tearful goodbyes, we saw him again. However, I no longer recognized this man. I actually cowered when I saw him because he was not the man I barely remembered. His face hardened, hair far grayer, stubble that seemed to be left on his face for days. The most menacing part was that he came off the plane with other men in uniform, and they all seemed so powerful, so out of place in that Georgia airport. The man that I cowered from was my father, who had been serving in the DMZ in South Korea, just shy of North Korea. I was just a child, so it seems rational for me to have forgotten his presence over time. He had turned into a mystical being like Santa Claus. I knew of him, but I no longer knew him. My mother, who headed a 3-child household on only her substitute teaching checks and whatever the government remembered to send us. My oldest brother became more of a father figure than my actual father. My father was sent to keep the enemy at bay, but no one bothered to think about the families that were being left behind during these extended tours. See, all that thoughts were on was stating the enemy, not on reducing the suffering that was occurring on the home front. Similar in debate, we are arguing these positions, i.e. troops and hostilities. However, no one seems to think about the effects that it would be to those that are serving or their loved ones that they are leaving behind. No one thinks about the so-called enemy and how they are suffering, or how we would be affecting the people in those regions. Debate is like war waging. It's seen through rose-colored lenses. Oh, there may have been some casualties, but hey, we won the war. Oh, I may have had to do something morally repugnant, but you know what? I won that last round. The similarities are astounding. Pain is felt outside of a troop being entered into hostilities, and residual pain can be felt outside of rounds. For one example, women's voices are being shot down at an alarming rate within debate. We are told that we will not be the collateral damage, that we have the same voice as the man. However, I can tell you from personal experience, being called a bitch and round from a fellow debater is not showing compassion. Neither is being repeatedly cut off and talked over during cross-ex. I come out of rounds so angry I wanted to scream. Not because the arguments were run or who the ballot went to, but because I couldn't even be respected within a debate round. See, I have had instances where I've considered quitting the activity altogether because people think that they can talk for me in rounds to make an argument. Also, time and time again, I've heard what they said was really nice and all, kind of brave, but no actual discussion of what was read, what was told to the opposing team. Not any interaction with the entire 9-minute-long speech. This type of pain is carried long after the ballot is being sent in, sometimes even past competition, but there seems to be no change within the community. Similar to these troops being entered into hostilities, we too are just seen as numbers. Nameless faces, no backstory, no life outside of debate. That if things go wrong in a round, that they won't affect us during our debate career or our lives. We know that all the odds are stacked against us, yet we go into these hostile situations hoping and praying that we will not be the collateral damage this time around. However, this is not a community united. Until we see each other through the light of independency, the pain and prejudices will continue to flourish. There will be no restriction of power until we change our personal politics. The suffering that of any group must be felt from one to another. We are all one of a larger population. We will only thrive when everyone's emotions are being felt as our own. We are one with each other, and everyone's story is important. Without allowing, acknowledging, and promoting one's unique voice, we will never see this debate community become one. The ramifications of interdependence should be that the little actions contribute to the community as a whole. Debate should be about how we all wait effort with each other through plans and advocacy statements. Policies wouldn't end, but instead it would be about which policy best embraces reconciliation and embracing contributory virtuosity. How that makes us different makes us united. Similar, our government and our country have not taken others' emotions into account or allowed for their voices to be heard. In 2002, Osama bin Laden wrote a letter to the president, and he outlined the reasons why there is a war between Islam and America and what to be done to stop it. He doesn't sound like an irrational, evil creature who felt hatred out of nowhere. While Tabby and I do not condone the violence and death, bin Laden felt like his choices were justified. Here are just some of his words. These tragedies and calamities are only a few examples of the oppression and aggression against us. It is commanded by our religion and intellect that the oppressed have a right to return aggression. Don't await anything but jihad, resistance, and revenge. Is it in any way rational to expect that after America has attacked us for more than half a century that we will leave her and live in security and peace? He continues. You may then dispute that above all, this does not justify aggression against civilians for crimes that they did not commit and offenses that they did not This argument contradicts your continuous reputation that America is the land of the free and its leaders are of the world. Therefore, the American people are just the ones who choose their government by way of their own free will. A choice that stems from their agreements to the policies. Thus, the American people have chosen, consented, and affirmed their support for Israeli oppression of the Palestinians, the occupation and usurpation of the land, and its continually killing, torture, and punishment of the expulsion of the Palestinians. The American people have the ability and choice to refuse the policies of their government and even change it if they want to. This is not the first time that individuals have pointed out the fact that the blind acceptance of the government's actions and how we individually relate to them is problematic. Nahana discusses this in his 2006 book, Mindful Politics, that we have ignored the ideas that behind us, what the ideas behind us as individuals can change the minds of our leaders and governments. So the question remains, what do we do from here? We believe and will affirm that when creating a culture and community of debaters, we must recognize each and every individual act as interdependent, and it creates a culture that is unwelcome for some. This is the exact negligence of interdependency that occurs in American policymaking when we falsely accuse Al-Qaeda of hating us for crimes, hating us for our religion, and not recognize the interrelated ways that the entire war on terror emerged. We affirm and promoting diversity through contributory bourgeoisie. This relies on the idea that identity is co-rising. We should see perspectives and views as building a new social ethic. Hirschhock's example of parenting shows how contributory bourgeoisie works. As a parent, there is no perfect handbook for every child, no check sheet to tell them exactly how to go about parenting. Instead, we draw from our own experiences and those around us for direction. Thus, the alternative. Vote negative to embrace interdependency and contributory bourgeoisie in the debate community and the political sphere. First thing to write down. Attacks against racism will only reinforce what they intend to break down. Anyone who hears criticism and the structures that they perceive themselves to be a part of our identities, that they deem themselves to be a part of, they defend of the position of proof the world be correct. Something to write down is that the alternative is key to breaking down racism. Only acting independent can we begin to break down these current worldviews. This is Trump Fund 5. There's basic supposition of the non-existence of ourselves and the basic bewilderment that arises in the attempt to communicate further in order to establish our ego development certain patterns of emotions and sensations of the emotions that is sufficient supported by the ego, and we apply the concept and conceptual process of labeling and naming things. These things that have names and concepts that attach to them and just estimate and bewilderment of confusion. We need an analytical mind and reinforcing them and putting them in their proper place and confirm that they are right to be there. This is the essential structure of the ego as well fortified in the attack external invasion. Is not going to destroy the ego at all. In fact, it's going to reinforce the whole structure because the ego is being given the material to work with. The undoing and learning process is the infiltration of the well-fortified structure of ego. And if our debate community and government continue to approach absent contributory bourgeoisie in regards to decision-making and how we interact with people, sexism, racism, and oppression will continue. McPhail explains this, how his absence occurred through Alan Bloom's book, A Closing of American Mind, which shows how arguments against Bloom upheld the same system and negative difference in preventing contributory bourgeoisie. This is McPhail 96. Goffman implies Bloom's attack of feminism and greater lesson knowledge. Bloom's position enters the grounds of the philosophy of transcendent, immutable truths that assumes that they exist in themselves and have an unchanging nature. The dialogue has described it as a rational distribution of the oppression answer method of arriving an essential definition of reality in order to achieve the truth. It assumes that knowledge that is generated the rational critical discourse of very verified and contemplative and understood the discourse. Bloom asserts the discriminatory laws of the region history and the views are not supported by qualitative or quantitative contemporary knowledge and considering race relations in the country. Bloom defending the privilege of the belief system that engenders the intellectual elitism. Bloom assumes that beliefs determine what is true and real. The foundations of knowledge are grounded in the privileged beliefs that their attacks and into opponents and espouse the positions that are call into question the underlying foundationalism. The positions are understood as independent of each other and also attempt to find a common ground between them in order to avoid warfare and fixed positions, which only results in winners and losers. Because of this attacks on blacks and women and literary critics, closing the American mind has been labeled as racist, sexist, and elitist. And essentially, critics rejected Bloom's argument and they affirm to this position at the most essential level. The most valuable lesson that Alan Bloom's book teaches is that who professes the dictated discourse of tolerance and an affirmation of willing to intolerate and reject the other positions that we do not agree with. Certainly, in terms of race adherence and the essentialist justificatory strategies and atypical and social educational systems, we tend to foster equality and justification. A conceptualization of the argument acknowledges the fact that the claiming and the precept of both ideas disagree and take positions that are mutually exclusive and essentially at odds with one another.
So what in here is
Well, first of all, like, you specifically isolate that, like, there is an oppressor, which is, like, the, the justice, like, I'm sorry, I didn't know that I like the acronym, I don't have that flow with me. Like, that implemented that some forms of torture are okay, and those that are torturing. And also, you specifically victimize those that are being tortured, and you're not allowing for the voice of the quote-unquote torturer, because like you're only seeing like one side of the story, and you're not understanding why they go about the things that they do, and like you have to recognize both sides of the story in order for like there to be adequate like coming to terms.
All right. So, is there any point in your speech that you give the voice of the sexist or the racist?
Well, or like to be completely honest, I mean, like, I think that by me speaking up here today is showing that I do, in fact, like, have privilege, and, like, there are people that don't, like, can't be here today, so.
Alright, so, okay, that's fine.
And also, I mean, like, there are a lot of people that have demonized Osama bin Laden for the things that he did, and we voice his, like, we don't specifically say that he's an oppressor, however, I know that there are people that do deem him as an oppressor, and therefore, like, we're allowing his voice to be heard.
Alright, so, your advocacy is to
embrace competency and allow for contributory virtuosity within the debate community and the court procedure.
Okay. So what about debate is like bad?
What about debate is bad?
Well, you seem to be criticizing debate in the beginning of yours.
Well, at the very beginning, I'm actually criticizing like the military and the government and how they're just like they're not like understanding that there are people suffering on the front, like within the first entire part of my
paragraph 2 and 3.
Okay. Okay. So in paragraph 2 and 3, I'm discussing how in debate, like we are like argue these positions, but we're not taking other people's views into account. Like when we're saying that, oh, you know, we're not going to enter hostilities into this specific region, but we'll still allow for this specific region. Like they're not taking like the mindset of like the soldiers that are getting put in. We're not taking into account the regions that are being affected. We're not taking anything like that into account.
Okay.
Also within debate, like there are many times that like me specifically, I also talk about like my voice getting shut down a lot of the time because like they think that I'm either being like I've been told at the end that I am too aggressive, and I know my partner has been told that she is too timid. Where is the connection there? Like, can we not do one or the other?
I know those feelings. Yes,
I have a question. Have we oppressed you in this round?
Personally,
Yes.
not in a personal sense yet. However, like you're taking you're taking an oppressor victim labelization and not allowing for the process to be heard.
Okay.
Perfect.